All right. Good afternoon and welcome to Titan Talks. You've got myself, we've got Captain McFarland, and we've got a
Ahoy.
special show today. We're doing beverages with the bosses, and we've got two special guests. We've got Ryan Smith, and we've got Chief Leon here with us.
Hello,
And
hello. Welcome,
welcome,
gentlemen.
gentlemen. Glad to have you
Pleasure to
guys
have
on.
you. Hello.
We appreciate you guys joining us today.
You know.
So today's going to be a little bit of a special show, guys. So today we're going to be, like I said, beverages with the bosses. We're going to enjoy some beverages with them, and we're going to kind of.
What are you drinking?
I am drinking a Corona.
Oh, I thought we couldn't say, but
We can't, but we'll see what happens.
There goes that channel. Well, that was nice while we had it, sir. Appreciate
We
it.
can always cut it out. This started early.
it's
No,
a nice cold pop. It's your room temperature if you're drinking Leon's.
Yeah, if you're Leon, it's cold is not cold enough. It needs to be frozen solid, apparently. So, but today's gonna be a little bit special. We're having some beverages with the bosses, and we're gonna grill them a little bit about kind of what started Titan and what made you want to do security. I mean,
Yeah, these are the founding fathers.
yeah, right here.
True.
Our ex-law enforcement.
Very
When
true.
we say that we're founded by law enforcement, these are the two guys that kind of started it and got us in the footprint that we're doing. So
They built it upon this rock.
right. So Ryan, out of curiosity, after your years and years of law enforcement, what made you want to start a security company? That's kind of like
How much time we have?
as long as you need.
Well, I mean, I started my first security job when I was 18. So I've been doing it for a while. Went into law enforcement. We worked together. Honestly, what got me interested in starting the company was coming in contact with the other security companies.
Sure.
We worked up in the northeast part of Johnson County, kind of right on the border of Kansas City, Kansas. And I want to say at the time that company was Metropolitan Patrol. Do you remember this? And
I do.
I don't know. We just would always come in contact with these companies, and and I don't think much has changed as far as where we are today. But what I kept coming in contact with was just kind of the hire by heartbeat. There was no training. It was just we put a body out there and their
Sure.
security, and here we go. So
Well, you came into contact with that, but with that company, you also came into contact with,
Yes.
you
I say from what the interactions I had a long time ago with security officers, you either got one or two. You had the hire by heartbeat who really didn't care; he was just there, and then you had the guy that was overactive. Those are the two I've always ran into. It was
and that's the exact balance that we try and strike, right? You
Mhm.
can't, we don't want to be the complete observe and report. We also don't want to be doing car stops and
Yes,
getting
sir.
ourselves into stuff. And so that's what we really focused on was let's put a lot of training into people. Let's, you know, put a better quality person and a better product out of there. And we had a really good, I mean, we started out just growing and, grabbing, and there seemed to be a really strong need for that because there really wasn't anything else. And I think the security industry still is geared towards how little can we pay people, how little can we bill a customer. And, we typically we went the opposite. And luckily when we started, I didn't go out trying to figure out what all of our competitors were charging. I just said, what do we need to charge to put a quality person
Right.
out there?
Right.
So a lot of times, and I think when we get into bidding scenarios with customers, the industry is geared towards how do we bid this to win the business, not to keep it. And we take the opposite mentality, which a lot of times, we get when people put formal requests or bids out, we don't always win those. But I'll say that what happens usually is the person that gets awarded, then they come back after 6 months and they go, well, that wasn't what we wanted.
Right.
How
Either
do we
that
get
or
that?
they'll, or of course, they'll even reach out and contact us and say, we wanted to go with you guys, we couldn't afford it.
Right.
Which, okay. You know, and we understand that as well. We're not for everybody, but we don't normally lose on our merits.
Right.
We will lose because they can't afford us or they're looking to save some money.
Well, we had a customer not too long ago in a bid scenario that, and I'd say that we're competitive in price, not necessarily, we're not the most expensive thing out there. I'd say our margins are very similar to what our competitors have. We probably put a little bit more into it as far as training, wage, some other stuff,
Right.
benefits and PTO and all that other stuff. But we had a customer in particular that kind of got on a call and said, "You guys are a buck or two more an hour than what we're seeing here. Why is that?" And we went through and said, here's our training program. We put through a week and we have the training simulator and everything else. And he kind of started that question almost a little bit upset, like, why are you gouging us? Like, what's
Right.
going on here?
right.
And as we talked through it, he was like, "That's what I want.
Yeah.
That's
Well, there's an
that's what we're
explanation
looking
for it. It's like, well, I can tell you exactly why we're this, and
Right.
this is we've already done our homework to make that bid credible, and so that's why we have this is the proof. Here's the here's the work to what we're doing, and like you said, it's kind of like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
You
Once
know,
it's like, once they understand it's not we're charging more
just
money to
because,
make more money,
right?
where sometimes have less margins than what our competitors have, but we have a lot more staying power. That's kind of your role, is keeping the clients and keeping them happy, and and working through different stuff, and our success rate with that, I mean, our retention rate of clients has been one of the strong points that we've had. And if we are losing clients at the same rate we're gaining them, we're spinning our wheels. We're
Right.
we're not moving and getting through this.
We're
So,
not in that business to lose clients, and I tell these guys all the time, we're not going to. If there's one thing that we will be perfect on, is we will be perfect in staying in front of our clients.
I will say too. So we started in 2008.
Yeah.
Was when we took on the first client, kind of incorporated as a business. I will say that those first couple years and up to about 2012, we grew pretty fast. I mean, we
Hmm.
were at one point, I think we were like the 130th fastest growing company in the nation.
Yeah.
We got that Inc. 500 award. I will say that those period from about 2012 to, I mean, for several years, we took on anything. We'd say yes to anything, and we
Right.
were
Yeah.
taking on business. And I think we kind of, there was a period where we strayed away from that model of charging what we needed to charge to have a quality product, and we started to get into that realm of, well, what do we got to do to win this business? And that, you guys,
Yeah.
that
Yeah, you're going
It's
down.
tough.
You're going down to the client standard versus adhering to ours, which is, hey, if we're not the standard you're looking for, whether that be too high, too low, then that's not the game we're going to play.
right. And
It's
that's
just
what we
healthier.
figured out over the past couple of years, is who our customer is and who it isn't. And
So I kind of think sliding into that realm where you go from what do we charge to keep the business versus what do we charge to win it,
right.
is sliding in back into that kind of teaches you a little bit of a lesson about what type of clients you should be bidding, and what type of work we should be doing. And so it kind of leads into saying, okay, we were right the first time and we should stick with that. And
Right.
so it gives a little life lesson.
Right. Right. And the customer now, what we've seen recently too, is the big companies have all bought up everybody else. And you really have, it's kind of Coke and Pepsi, and then you've got local mom and pops. And customers are starting to really understand that and know that the national companies are chasing the national clients, and everybody else kind of, you get, the scraps and that type of thing. We've fit really well into those middle market type clients and that type of thing. The other side of when I started the company too, that has always been kind of a part of our DNA, is the technology side of things, and how do we
Right.
blend those together. And with the camera monitoring and all of that stuff that we're doing, that's one of the other things. And when I look back, and it's interesting we're having this conversation now, only because kind of putting all the pieces together, when we look back at how we started with quality security officers training and technology. And where are we today? We're seeing all those things kind of
Come
start to
together.
come together
Yeah.
to where, and I think that, because it used to be when I started in security when I was 18, you had guard companies and you had camera companies, and they didn't really do anything in between. And so kind of now we're seeing those things blend together, where it's how do we use technology to be efficient, and then how do we couple that with really quality officers that blend well together with that. And I think that's
It's made us
who
that.
we are.
It's made us that mid-major in the big dance in the tournament. We're just that.
The Gonzaga.
Yeah, we're just nasty and scrappy enough to cause some problems,
Well,
and to make nationals. Say, God damn it, who are those guys again?
Right.
I
I mean, and your forward thinking is what's getting us there. I mean, look at Netflix and Blockbuster.
Right.
Netflix said, "Hey, buy us out." Right? They're like, they're not going to be mailing DVDs for years, and then boom, technology took Netflix to the top of the charts as far
Streaming
as that. Yeah,
changed that game.
exactly. And so knowing the future, or predicting, or being aware and keeping an eye on where technology is going in the future, is what saved Netflix's life.
Exactly.
You know?
It's one of those things where I could be in front of a client now, where I used to just say, well, I can get you an officer, I can get you a patrol head. Now I'm in front of a client saying, I can get you an officer, I can do training for you, I can get an officer and a camera, I can get you just
Virtual
cameras, I
officer.
get a camera to talk down to you, I can
Yep.
get a patrol response, I can get a call response, I can get that. And it's just that, that toolbox is just kind of spreading open to where you're just like, I've got every tool for this job.
Well,
Yeah.
and we're not holding on to those old tools that don't really do anything anymore.
Right.
You know, whereas those one guys, they got that one tool for that one job and it works once a year that they need it for.
Yep.
We're getting rid of that and we're going to the multi tools and saying, hey, this is going to do everything we want it to do.
Well, and that's too, like when you looked at the old model, if you had a security need and you went to the camera people, they're going to say, you need a camera.
Yeah.
You go to the guard people, they're going to say, no, you need a guard.
need-
How do you
yep.
get it? And there, so you're selling what makes sense for the company, not what makes sense for the customer. And so now we have the ability to go to a different aspect and go, here's
Having
your
everything-
challenge, here's
Having
your
everything
options.
in house, you can
Yeah,
be
What
able to
makes sense for
Yep.
you and kind
Yep.
of move through that.
Hey, this won't work. We do offer that. This isn't going to work for you. But we do offer this, which will.
We've had that. I mean, we've had that several times where we'll go, this is what we think you need. And they go, no, we need this. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
If that's what you want.
There's 10 other guys down the street selling it. So
Right.
you go buy that. And then here's my number because you'll call us in 6 months. And you want what I told you wanted in the first place.
Or I'll get on the phone with a potential client, and all I can hear is Sean. I'm sitting there saying, you need to talk to Sean Burns. You know, I mean, I'm not, you know, and so we'll bounce stuff back and forth to
Right.
each other. Or you need to talk to Connor. You know, you need to talk to Connor, and you know, I could throw Captain McFarland or myself in front of you, but what I really think you're looking for is Connor or Sean. You know,
It's much more solution based and partner based than it is banging our heads against the wall and scrambling. And two, you know,
McFarland and I have a saying: we don't want MVPs. We want Lombardi trophies.
Right.
We say it all the time. I just want championships. I don't care who the most valuable.
Did we lose you there,
player is.
buddy? Did we lose you
He
there?
picked it back up.
The Lombardi Trophy is the trophy awarded to the winner of the Super Bowl each year.
Yeah.
Joshua.
no
It's the big game.
whatsoever.
Zero.
He's a racing guy.
Yeah.
He's racing.
Like F1 or like.
I'm okay with F1, but I prefer rally and desert. Those are my two
And
preferred.
when you say preferred, meaning like you'll sit down and watch a race, or are you
Mhm.
more like a yeah?
I'll
Oh,
watch.
you're a motorhead. Then.
I'll
You've
watch
always
both of
been
those,
kind
but
of-
I much rather participate.
okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have the reaction speed needed for a rally racer because those guys are within.
Even those guys don't sometimes.
But mine's not consistently that good. So I'll watch a good rally race, but when it comes to like regular sports, football, baseball, anything like that, I'm lost in the weeds without somebody who will periodically be like, "Hey, that's a good thing right there."
Right.
No, I don't
Yeah,
trust
fill
you
in
and
the
Roses. I don't trust
Hey,
anymore.
no, he's the one that like
That is
about what a
dangerous.
field goal
'cause
is.
you
Well,
could fill you with all
So
sorts
we
of
did we
It
did it.
happens.
We
It wasn't me. Don't
no,
blame
it wasn't
us.
him.
I corrected you. He goes, "That's
He-
really nice interception."
we
When the
did it-
guy made a field goal.
No, I didn't say interception. No, it wasn't interception. We did. We were.
What is the slang term for the Indianapolis 500 brick? It's not. It's something to do with bricks, isn't it?
The Brickyard.
There's some
Brickyard's like a Florida
brickyards.
race.
Yeah, that's a different one. Anyway, just think of the biggest race.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just want to win that every year.
Right.
Yeah.
When you
You mean the
when you
Indy
went to the
Yeah, that's what it
it was
is.
called,
Yeah.
and then you said championship. I was
World Cup.
There we go.
What's going on right now? World Cup. When all the
It's
countries
actually,
come
really
together.
like
it's
how you
actually
said-
over, but it's okay.
It's recent.
It's
Yeah.
a sports thing, and he's still. It's great. You said championship. The minute you said championship, I was good.
The World Cup just happened.
I'm getting mad at you now.
He's always mad.
So
It's true.
it is.
Scrooge.
Would you say I'm always mad?
Put a percentage to it. Out of
Uh,
what percentage is he upset?
60-65.
have you seen in his office? I have a "How is my day going?" There's a
Meter.
smiley face, a medium face, and an angry face. Well, he went in and changed it to angry, angrier, and angriest.
Fair.
I was
Yeah.
going to say that
That
sounds like a,
also changes by the minute. Like
Yeah,
that, you
absolutely.
it's a
we
the
experienced
wind blows.
that a couple of days within the past couple of days too.
Thanks. Thanks. I'm gonna drink my pop.
Stand and look at me while you do that. All right, so
I don't call it anger. I call it tenacity. Staying for it.
grit.
Yeah, he
grit,
does.
tenacity.
He does.
Yeah.
Don't sleep.
We're yeah. No, he doesn't. That no, and that's by choice. I won't go over your schedule just for privacy purposes, but this man has the tendencies of a serial killer when it comes to what he does.
I say there are
He
some
is
times
strict.
I super worry about him because this is the same guy that will, in negative 10-degree weather, as long as there's no ice on the road, will go out running.
Yeah, he'll stick to his
do
his
it
schedule.
fully, and it's just psychopathic to me.
He needs his routine. It's
No, absolutely.
When you
That's
get
fair.
outside of the routine, everything's okay when you're in the routine.
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
the same way, to be honest. But it's
I am, but not as bad, and I'm starting to learn to be like that just because it's necessary for what we
necessary.
do.
I heard
It
somebody
really
put
is.
that in a logical sense that says when you have a routine and you follow it, you're not wasting brain space on
No,
what am I
no.
doing today and how do I.
Nope.
It's already figured out for you, so you've got one less
You
thing to
follow
worry
the steps.
about.
Yeah.
How to go
I
through.
gave these guys some books to read that you and I both really find very rewarding. And one of the ones, chapter that I'm pointing out to him, he never went and read it.
Yes, I did.
One of the things that I point out
I
to
don't
him
know.
It's
Like a book.
You can read good.
is
You can read good.
is the pre-mortem, not the post-mortem. We at Titan have to stick with the pre-mortem exact examination, not
Right.
post-mortem after the homicides happen. We got to
Right.
stick with it before it happens.
You've got to be fire preventers, not firefighters.
Yes.
We spend many years as firefighters,
And it is
that's chaos.
to
Absolutely.
be a preventer. You can't sleep. You have to stay tenacious and you have to stay after it. You cannot.
I mean, you can sleep.
Yeah, no, I'm using that as a metaphor.
Hyper vigilant. You got
You
hyper
can't ever
vigilant.
get the mentality of the champ. You always have to have the mentality of the number one contender.
Yeah. Can't be caught sleeping.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can't be caught sleeping.
Yeah. If you're looking at the boxing movies, you always want to be Clubber Lang. You don't want to be anybody else but Clubber Lang because he is so mad and angry
Who's
in
that
Rocky
to?
3.
I actually don't know who that is.
It's
We'll
Mr.
just-
T.
we'll-
No more
yeah.
jibba jabba.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's Rocky 3.
Number 4 is
Clubber Lang.
Number 4 is still the best. I must break you.
I always kind of.
That's not
is
the
that
best.
number 4?
That's number 4. That's
There's not even another.
We're gonna get it. Thank you.
Wait a minute.
They're not even another.
We're getting into this.
The Russian.
Hold on a second.
the Soviet Union versus freedom.
Is there another Rocky movie?
Yes, there's the first two.
It's like 8
classics. I think
Apollo Creed?
Yeah, he won an Oscar
I think
for
the first one was like black and white.
for screenplay or something. Like, what did you just say?
It was
What did you
silent,
just say?
Silent picture.
I believe the 5th. Yes.
You're calling me.
Going on the whole
You're calling me old, and you have a bald spot.
bald spot. I'm balding everywhere because I don't sleep. Sleep.
Hyper vigilant.
What is that? What's going on? Broken. Who's hurt? What bad news is there?
Okay. So that kind of leads me into a question for Leon. You worked with him in law enforcement for years, and when he told you he wanted to start a security company, what was your? Do you outright say, "Hey, I think that's a good idea. Let me
It
join
was
you"?
very obvious to me that Ryan was on a path where he wasn't going to work for anybody.
Yeah.
He was going to keep throwing things at the wall until he figured out a path where he was not going to work for.
Is that
some-
because he's a bad employee?
No, not at all.
Well, me to derail.
He was
throw that in there.
he was a very, very well liked officer. Well, much more liked than I was. And the thing is,
I believe
No
that.
comment there.
and the thing is he's just a big brain working. He just had a big. I remember one time I pulled up next to him on midnights, and we call it 21 or door to door, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it. And so I'm here, and he's right next to me, and he's got a Gauls catalog. You guys know what Gauls
Yes,
is? Yeah,
yes.
so he's got a Gauls catalog with all the police supply stuff in. And he looks at like some item that just looked like horse shit when it was, just some gadget of the week for Gauls. And I remember him looking at me going, "We got to come up with something better than this crap right here." He goes, "We can do it. You and I can do this. We can figure this out." And he tried a couple other little things. And then the next thing I know, we are at an interview at a bar down south.
Okay.
And they wanted us to train bouncers and stuff like that.
You remember this?
Oh my God! Yeah, that was in what town was that? Osawatomie.
Osawatomie.
Osawatomie, Kansas. We were in the middle of that because we were throwing anything, and this guy, I don't even remember how that came about.
I don't either.
That guy had a bar down there, and he's like, "We need some help training the staff and everything else." And I mean, I was like, and now I'll tell you, one of the great pieces of our success with Leon has been there's always the mentality of we'll figure it out. We've always had that.
Yeah.
Say yes and figure it out later. Now, I think what we've learned through the years of saying yes to everything is let's pick what we say yes to and spend our, spend our, but we've always had that mentality.
Let's allocate our resources
figure it
somewhere
out.
that's going to be better.
And there's more. For instance, off of the phone call that we just got off of, which was a fantastic phone call. It was good news.
Right.
Fantastic news. I was typing to Connor, get in my office because
He's already starting to try and figure it out.
because I'm
Right.
I'm doing the pre-mortem.
Yeah.
Right.
I said, get in my office right now. And so we're sitting there doing math numbers of how many officers.
Doing math numbers.
All right, that was pretty
Sorry.
dumb. That was pretty. All right.
Things.
Three.
Let me take my shoes off.
Accelerate. Microsoft Excel.
1, 2,
We're at
five.
10 now. Hold on, I gotta.
All right, so that's
He's gonna take his lights off to get to 20.
2. All right, he got me there.
But
No,
it's-
we see it and we attack, and we're like we know what's coming down the pike, and we got to get after it. And there was no high.
outwork us, but now I think we've gotten older and wiser to go. Where do we spend our energy?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we're big believers in that. When they go to make a decision on, if they come to me and they say, we got these 3 great candidates, we got this 1 great gig. Who do you want? And I'll say, who's got the best motor? And they'll
Right.
say that one. And you got to have a motor to be.
Well, that's why I've been so big on the numbers and the KPIs and that stuff. Is it's not to micromanage, it's to empower us to know what to say yes and what to say no
Yeah.
to. Because what we fell into was, let's try and do 10 things. And who's the guy from Parks and Rec? Ron Swanson. He always
Yeah.
says,
Yeah.
let's not half-ass 10 things. Let's whole-ass 3 of them.
Yep.
And that's what we're trying to do. Is go.
Great
Let's
character.
pick the 3
Sounds
most
right that
important things
It's true.
and really do those well.
It's in everything we do.
Yeah.
That's how I walked by Connor. I hear him asking that to potential clients. He asks the potential clients. I ask potential clients. We say the same thing. What are the 3 things that we need to do during this shift as an officer that's going to make you happy as a client?
Right.
And we
What are
just
the
keep
biggest
it as simple
concerns?
as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Simple
and
stuff.
that's, I mean, the way you answer the question is a perfect example. You got, like he said, he's always thinking, hey, how can this get better? We can do better than this. This is what this is what the market has for this product or whatever. We can do better. And then you go into this is how we're going to do it. And so just having that mixture is a perfect cocktail for success. And
Right.
that's why it'll be 15 years next year then, if I do my maths correctly.
Is that
Your
right?
math numbers?
I think I did math numbers in my head right.
The picture.
15
Well, I got to be
years.
honest. If it's almost 10 for me, I think the company's been going on another 5, 6 longer than I have.
So, and the question I have then, has he worked here for
Go ahead.
15 years?
Go ahead.
Let's see. When was your?
What say you? What say you?
Photographic
I have
evidence.
photographic evidence of me. Hold on.
I don't.
Of me doing personal security for the
This is true.
2008.
It's a part-time employee. Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
I,
wow. It's got some HR, some .gov to
it's got some words.
Basically, if you look here, that shit.
this is
Every year his anniversary comes up. Like,
We're on 15 now. I think it's 12.
This is what Numbnuts comes up to me and says. He says, "Hey, it's my 5-year anniversary. Are you going to do something special?" Which reminds me of also Instructor Schatzel. Can you do? You're doing something special. You better do something special.
In my defense, I didn't ask. I said, "Hey, it's my 5 years." And I went, "Yeah," and I walked away.
You came up and wrote it on my dry erase paper.
Well, it needed to be celebrated. Sunday was
And he
my
goes,
5 years.
"Do something special." And I'm sitting there going, "Boss doesn't even know how many years I've been here, and actually,
That's where this came from.
actually
you've
denies
been,
it."
You've been here 15.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want you to
Full-time
know,
employee.
just so you know, it's recorded. So you
Thank
got
you
that for evidence.
Thank you. That took 15 years to get you to say. No, he did not say do something special. He just wanted to remind me multiple
Yes.
times.
Because I know he cares and we have enough love for each other that he's going to feel bad. And so I know how to guilt him.
To be
I'm
honest,
pretty good at that.
I think
Yeah.
I think I forgot about mine, my 5-year, and then he called me.
Too busy plugged into the matrix.
Yeah, I completely. It was pretty. I
pulled the
completely
tube
forgot about it.
Who are you?
And
How long have I been in?
And then you called me on my anniversary, and you're like, "Hey, I just wanted to congratulate you on another year." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" You're like, "It's your 5-year anniversary." And in my head, I went, "It's been 5 years."
That's what I did.
Come on, wait a minute.
Still drinking the
And then-
Kool-Aid.
And then my 9 came up in this year, and I was just like, "It's been 9 years."
Be a
And
decade next year,
we were in
yeah.
an orientation class, and
But-
he outs me as my 9-year,
Mhm.
and all the new hires
It's personal. You guys know. He doesn't like people knowing that stuff every chance I get.
and all the new hires
It's
just
his
looked
birthday
at me.
next week.
So
10
it's
year
not.
this week. No, not really.
Not
But I
really.
will tell people when I find out.
Please don't.
I will.
But all the new hires looked at me and they're like, 9 years? I'm like, yeah, I know.
I'm going to be here like a week or two.
It's all rooted.
Right.
It's a different. I was telling the story in supervisor training this morning. Niece, D Ortiz, who everybody knows, but
She's going to be close to that too.
she's coming in on it. Yeah, she's in my office, and we had sent her to out of town on a temp gig, and so she was unplugged for 2 weeks, and she's back in my office, and you can see she's kind of manic because she's out of loop. And Ryan is making coffee across from my office, and after she leaves, and she kind of leaves in a huff, and
No way.
Ryan pokes in. He goes, "Is she okay?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "What's going on with?" I heard you kind of talking her off the ledge. What's going on? And I said, "She's all 10H, she's worked up because she's been out of the loop." And he goes, "Oh, she's as screwed up as the rest of them."
Yep.
That's the thing. Now, I will say we've gotten a little bit better at it. I don't think the speed or the pace slows down. I think the manic and the chaos
Could not agree more.
has gotten
Could not
better.
agree
Well,
more.
that's what getting healthy
But
does.
we
Yeah.
also thrive off that. Like you to be here, you can't. It's not like there's an energy with that. That's like as crazy as it is. It's also fulfilling. Of like,
Mr. Mahomes was just saying, he said, "I got to figure out why I play at my best when I'm 2 touchdowns down."
Yep.
right?
And we do some really special things when the pressure's on.
Yep.
I mean, we really, really
It's that
do.
you can just feel it in the air.
Yeah.
It's a sports reference, but when you're in that huddle and you're like, we have one play to make this work.
Yeah.
That's it. Everybody just dials in, pins the ears back, and we make
Who
magic
else is
happen.
doing anything? I mean, I'm not trying to toot our own horns, but I mean, who else is doing anything close to what we're doing? That's the other thing that's exciting about where we are today is we've got something that's working and we're watching it kind of grow. I mean, 15 years is nuts. I
Well,
didn't
and
even put that together.
right. I think you kind of pointed out already. You got the national companies that you're going to get the national response. Maybe 72 hours later with a complaint of somebody saying, "Hey, this officer who's not doing anything. What am I paying for?" Versus if I wait 72 minutes, he's angry.
Well, and think about,
I'm already
think
fixing
about
it.
from a pricing standpoint. If you've got a customer and you say, "Hey, we're going to be $1 an hour extra," you got one officer, that's $40 a week's difference.
Yeah.
You'll feel that $40. And I mean, you
Yeah.
can talk to customers and they know it and they feel it and go, yeah, that's it. And it's not necessarily what breaks the bank. That extra dollar doesn't go into my pocket. It
Right.
goes into positions like you guys that
Yeah.
are out there to go, hey, you've got an issue. I'm here to fix it.
Correct.
Not an email response after
I
a
think
week
that's
or
one
a
of the
month.
things that
And
we make mention to the client, and I got this from him, is we'll go into a client and be like, we may cost more. But the difference for us and that you're gonna see is when you have an issue, you call me and you go, I've got an issue. Here's my issue.
Yep.
You're not gonna get a voicemail, you're not gonna get an email going, we'll take care of it. You're gonna get a valid physical response from a supervisor who's gonna show up and go, I got your issue, I got it handled, we're gonna take care of it right now.
Right.
And that solution is gonna come.
It's
It's
been
not gonna
our
take
key. The key has not been that we don't make mistakes. It's
Nope.
that when we do, we fix them and we don't repeat it.
Or own
Yeah,
up to him. We don't try to hide it and say,
Right.
"No,
Yeah.
he wasn't doing that." No.
Right.
Hey, knock it off. Do what you're supposed to be doing.
And customers are really that it's not they're not saying we don't want you ever to screw up. It's just when you do, we want some accountability.
They want
and we want it
accountability.
fixed, and we
And-
want somebody that we can trust and go, okay, this is they're on it. I can
Well,
pass the
sure.
baton
And
and it's gonna get handled.
the one, there's probably a few, but one of the only things I can see that COVID did and that helped in a positive way is kind of brought everybody to the same playing field. No matter how much money you make, no matter what you do, you're affected by disease the same way, essentially.
Right.
And it brought some humanity to some of these customers or people or the society saying, "Hey, the example you've used before, you go to a restaurant, there's 3 people working. They come up and say, "Hey, it's going to be 45 minutes before you get your food." It's much easier to wait. Excuse me, it's much easier to wait than 45 minutes, knowing ahead of time
Right.
and saying, "Hey, we're all human beings here. We're doing the best we can. We're going to make mistakes, but we're going to own up to them." And so that's one thing he's always championed for us. Don't hide behind it.
We saw everybody, yeah, don't hide behind it because we saw everybody during COVID do that. When you don't go up to that table and say, "Hey, we're short staffed and this is going to be a wait," what that translates into is you're sitting at the table going, "Where's that server?"
That's what I'm saying.
Until you
Yep.
blow up and go, "Where's my food?" That's what's happening. Like, they go, "There's no guard here. What's happening?" If we had an issue that we needed to cover, we were on the phone going, "Hey, we got a patrol cab
Yeah.
coming your way.
Yep,
We got
we're doing the
somebody
best
else
we
coming.
can.
We're
Humanize it a little bit.
Yeah.
They're not just a number, a name. And so to answer the question, I think there's a lot from what I see, and I'm not as plugged into, the competition. I'm worried about us, but what I see is you got, like you said, the guys that are going to meet you price point wise. Just get somebody there that you can afford, or you have somebody that's gonna just national you all day.
Right.
And hey, this is our logo. Everybody knows it, but you're gonna talk to 6 different people about a single complaint versus you're gonna get me, you're gonna get him or somebody else
Well,
to fix
it's
it.
actually, I think it's the opposite of where you're not going to hear from anybody.
Oh, true.
because you've
Yeah.
got you've got one person,
Or they just pass the buck around.
right? That's
Yeah.
just, hey, you've got one point of contact, and they're covering the entire company. You're just not getting much, response to that. And what that one person is doing is giving their attention to their biggest national customers.
Because they have to.
Right.
Yeah.
It's how they
Their
have
boss
to
is
get.
saying,
That's
hey,
their
why
bread
are
and
you
butter.
messing with that $90,000 a year
And that's what we
client?
saw out of COVID that was interesting is now where we used to be more expensive, what we've seen as customer, they're getting price quotes that are high because companies don't have the staff to do it. And
Right.
they go, we're not going to say no. We're just going to say, here's a crazy price. And, if you say yes. So it's been,
Well, and
COVID's an interesting
it's an enigma a little bit
X
because
factor,
yeah,
right?
it's there's some good, some bad, and obviously it's horrible what happened to people. But I think the one thing that I pull out of that, the positive I try to, is that people became a little more decent to each other. Because they're having the same problems we're having.
I don't want to turn this into I honestly don't have a opinion strongly on vaccines and all that stuff. But one thing I thought that was interesting out of COVID, because I remember when it first hit, and we were essential, right? We were because we were out there, and especially with grocery stores and other retail. I thought everybody's going to get COVID. There's no way we're going to even be able to staff these things. It wasn't that big. I mean, COVID sucked and several people got it, but
Yeah.
it didn't. And we had those people that were out there on the front lines at the grocery stores.
I was at a
and
hospital like
hospitals.
the second
hospitals
week
and-
it was like declared a national emergency. They're sitting at a hospital with a paper mask, and these guys are coming in. And I'm like, whoa, dude. I'm not trying to get that. And unfortunately, it affected a lot of people really negatively. But yeah, I'd say that we weathered it pretty well. I would agree with you.
I couldn't be more proud of how. I mean, I've said that a couple times, but we got in front of it and got with customers and are out. We were not hiding back, going, "Oh, God, what's going to happen?"
hey, we're not gonna have
Credit,
somebody here.
credit where credit's due. That guy has a
That's
lot to do with
right
it.
there.
Great.
Because he would not sleep, obviously, and he wouldn't let us go. Well, COVID's here, so that's no. It's a problem, but this is what we're doing to fix it because that's what he does. He
He's a
goes,
problem
COVID, no
solver.
problem. I'll fix
His
it.
anxiety is much higher when he doesn't have a problem to solve.
That's a very, very valid and good point. Idle
He
hands.
is zen when he's got what's on fire.
Look at that smile.
Yeah. He's elbows deep in a tree and she's fine. But when he's sitting there by himself, he goes, what could I be?
It's weird.
It was one of those things where I remember walking by his office and I'll pop in there maybe once a week, maybe once every other week and sit down on his couch and say, "Hey, how's it going?" And he spins around in his chair and he's like, "So, COVID, what are we gonna do?"
It's your problem.
You know what though? There was also peace in that, where it was like
Nobody knew.
you
Yeah.
got
And
one
we're all
foot
in it
in
together.
front of the
Where's,
animal.
where's the playbook or where's the page in the playbook that hey, there's a pandemic? We're essential. Our guys are affected just like everybody else, but we got to keep our foot
Oh,
on the
and
gas.
we're real big on saying, "Seen that before, seen that before, seen that before. We've done that." Well, this is a pandemic.
Have you
This
seen
is
that
one
before?
Yeah. And we're all just like, "Oh boy, let's figure this out." Yeah, that was a all of us. We know the car's gonna flip. We grab onto each other. And, holy shit, this is gonna suck really cool.
Been there.
And somehow but it's because of you guys, and it's because of these officers that come in day and do what can be a lot of time a thankless job, and those poor. I was just, it was killing me knowing that this poor officer is standing in a grocery store saying, "Ma'am, they need you to put a mask on." And then that person was teeing off on our officer for their political platform, whatever case in whichever direction it may be. And it was not this kid's fault. He was just following orders.
Doing what he was told.
That's what's always been peaceful about law enforcement and security is you don't have to play that game. You're just out there going.
You're a referee
I'm-
throwing the flag on the
Yeah,
field.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't make the rules. I just enforce them.
Yeah, you were holding. We were holding. Here's your flag.
Yep. No, and that's a good point. I mean, because to bring it back to that, and I don't want to dwell on COVID, but we have rules to follow too. And so we got bosses to answer to as well, and whether that be the law or what what the
Tonight's
client wants us
policies.
to do. So it's a very good point that these guys went out there and did that. Not only while they're putting their life in jeopardy, because at the time, everybody's like, "You get COVID, you die." There's no recovering. Before the vaccines are out, or and like you said, whatever you believe in, these guys went out there and did it anyway. That's some bravery and some courage right there. It's just, and so thank you to everybody that's still with us that
100%.
was there. We wouldn't have gotten through it without you guys.
No.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
And so there's
Well, and
it doesn't
that's
go
that's
unnoticed.
the other side of this too. I mean, we talk about training and all the things that we do that we think, but the officers are the lifeblood of our company. That's
Yeah,
what
of course.
we put out there. And I think that's one of the things we really tried to focus on this year. I know Kyle's big initiative was, we want to be the better quality type of thing. Well, let's also make it the better place to work.
Let's put our people first.
Yep.
Benefits. And that's what his mantra this year was, people over profits. And we got PTO up, we got the benefits, the 401k,
Not to mention the pay rate.
training, the pay
Yeah.
raises
Nice bump.
considerably.
Yeah.
And you know what? And I think COVID, when you look at all of that and say that was when we were going through that, where we'd say yes to anything, we'd always go, well, we can't ask that client for a price increase because COVID forced it. And
Yeah,
what we
of course
figured
it
out
did.
about that and through all of that was, don't cheapen ourselves just to win the business. Put it
Yep.
out there, and if there's a fit, there's a fit. But taking that leap, I think, really propelled us in the past couple of years to say, to empower us to say, we know who our customers are, we know who our employees are.
We
If
know
I
that.
was going to talk about our journey, I would say we started out when Ryan started the company. I would say we started out very, very sure of our game plan, and then because of the pop of growth we got a little bit lost in the desert there for a while, and then something right probably pre-COVID um really found our identity again, and who we are and what our belief is and our value system is what we're trying to put out there. And then one of the biggest pieces of us going to bed every night knowing who we are and what we should be was actually Kyle coming.
Yeah.
And the thing is it was Kyle saying, oh, I see what you guys are doing here, and you should be paid better for it.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
and what do you mean
Mhm.
you guys? He's talking about you officers.
Yeah.
You know, and he's not talking about me. He's not talking about you guys. He's talking about those
The
officers
officers. Yep.
and what's put into them and what they have to offer and the responsiveness and as a whole from our company. And it took somebody kind of from the outside looking in to say, oh, I see what you guys are doing, and you guys should be paid.
Well, and he saw that he came from from a national company, and what he saw was how they were banging their heads against the wall in that kind of, hamster wheel and going, you guys are onto something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That was kind of, helpful as well too, to see like, hey, we need to get back to what was working for us. And I started one of my biggest, my obsession with Quick Trip. I always envisioned us as the Quick Trip of security, and there were so many
Good business model.
parallels, right? You go
Yeah.
in there and the training, they train the people, everything is just it's buttoned up, it works quickly. You may pay a couple extra cents for, a bag of chips, but you're willing to do it because if I drive up to a Quick Trip and the parking lot's full, that doesn't deter me because I
Me
know
neither.
I'll get in.
It's a
and
very
Yep.
good point.
Yeah.
hours, 24 hours. There's all sorts of stuff. It's like they look at their employees. It's not like security is always the most glamorous thing in the world. And Quick Trip has a thing where they show you as a potential employee, here's a video of somebody cleaning the toilets because
Well,
that's
and
part of the
that
gig.
could be the manager doing it. They're
Yeah.
not telling the new guy, "Hey, you're on toilet duty and you're doing this." I know one that's by the office. When I worked overnights, I would go there all the time because they're one of the few places open, and they've got hot food that's decent. And so I would always go there, either to or from the office. So if you know one of the managers, I'd see them out there power washing at
Yeah.
like 3 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "You're the one that runs the place." Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
dude,
and-
what did you hear me say about Sean Burns? That dude made his bones with me. His moment I stepped outside. It's 1,000,000 degrees outside, and he's laying on his back on hot asphalt working on a trailer.
Building on a trailer.
And I was like, and Kyle goes, "What do you think?" I said, "You don't have to ask me that again." And he's like, right. And I told Kyle, I said, "That's the kind of thing that you made your bones with me."
Well, that's what our
Yeah.
core group here does.
Yeah,
You know?
you got to go make
So-
your bones, man.
Well, the other thing Quick Trip does too is it's like, let's promote from within. Let's have career paths for this stuff. And
Which
I've
we'll do.
been happy to see that
I don't remember the
people have
last.
grown and have
I've actually gotten to a point. I took a phone call the other. No, it was a visit. It was a visit from a local police officer. Local police officer you know very well who used to work for us. And he came to me and said, "Hey, Leon, I'd like to start doing some instructing for you guys." And I said, "That's fantastic. I'll keep you in mind, but I'll be real honest with you, man. I've got some born and bred Titan guys that I need to nurture and take care of first because they have an interest in instructing. They have an interest in being that. And it's tough to turn cops away because that's
Well,
where we
but you
came
have
from.
to train and to know like our culture, what's important to us. Like you have to have that DNA in
Yeah.
you. And I think that's also what's helpful is everybody in this room has worked as a security officer. We've seen a lot of different sides of the coin, but we've always, we've done the job and we've
We
Pretty
don't
much.
we don't forget what it's like to stand
No.
on your feet for 8 or 9 hours to get yelled at, or we don't forget what it's like to work in conditions like today,
right,
and so we take that into consideration when I either have to unfortunately punish somebody for not doing what they're supposed to be doing, or if they're either they make a mistake. I take that in consideration of what else the elements they're battling, whether that be conditions outside or just the conditions of the work. Like
right,
you said, it's not always glamorous, and oftentimes it's not.
right,
And so being a human as a supervisor has a lot more success. I use this phrase all the time. You catch a lot more flies with honey than you do vinegar,
right,
and sometimes you got to be harsh and to get across to some people because they respond to it better. But I keep that in mind all the time that hey, I'm gonna go yell at this guy for doing something wrong, but he was outside for 16 hours in the snow
right.
and in the blistering 40 mile
They're
an hour
still a
winds.
human, right?
Yeah, and so I'm gonna be a little more lenient when they make a mistake after an 8-hour shift after, or they just 2 back-to-back 12s or something. There's gonna be some human condition there, and so that's just something that we've always done really well with our
Hmm.
core group here is, he yelled at me for coming in sick, where most bosses like, "Thank God you're here,"
Right,
and he's like, "Don't be here when you're sick. I need you
What are you
the
doing?
the rest of the 4 days this week, not
Yeah.
just today."
right,
And so that kind of stuff, and so he's instilled a lot of that stuff in us, and it trickles down, and so we're fortunate to have that style, which you're not going to get at a national company,
right,
and you're not going to get at a company that's, hey, how little can I pay you to do this job?
right,
Because we want to, get 6 more feet on our yacht. No, that's not the officer's yacht. And so here we're all a little piece of it, and I think this podcast is a really good job of bringing that together because how often do they get to see, us four interact?
right,
Here
right,
they do.
right.
And, after the
That's
day they
one of the
will.
that communication piece with officers in the field has always been a challenge because we have 400 some employees, but
Yeah.
they all work outside of this office. And
Remote
so,
workforce.
how
Yeah.
do we connect with them? And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show was we want to keep that communication going. That if people want to know what's going on with the company or how do we keep that communication going is a big piece of that. But
That is that piece of getting in front of everybody. We're continuing to. I know that's the captain and I's game plan for the year is to have him in front of people as much as humanly possible because we know with that remote workforce that they get a very go team aspect of their week of training, and then after that it might be some time,
right,
and so we got to keep that. They don't have a squad room all the time to go home to like we did on the
right.
street, and so we got to make sure we're
Well,
keeping.
and that, I mean, now that we're starting to expand, I mean, we've got St. Louis, Omaha, and that's kind of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
roadmap now is going, okay, how do we duplicate ourselves and how do we grow? That makes that even more important because now we're not talking about how do we connect with employees that are in Kansas City? How do
Got
we
to be
do it in
connected with
St.
them in a
Louis?
different
How do we
city
do it in
or a
different
different
places?
state.
And
Yeah.
we just have to do that, I mean, it's a piece of that. That, I think expansion obviously is on the roadmap. The other one, I think the technology thing and growing that. I'm really looking at a drone program right now. I think there's something with having drones that would be able to patrol a property, notify the officer of what needs attention. So you kind of blend those things together and
Sure.
how that piece comes. I think that'll be a big piece of the future. You think about the robots and the security and all that stuff. I think drones beat robots only because if you're going to patrol outside, you've got terrain, you've got,
Right.
how does that stuff work and different stuff. But I see that being a piece.
I agree. I think we got to keep throwing new looks at people and keep expanding the playbook. I mean, we want to still what you want to do when you expand that playbook is you don't want things to take away from your bread and butter. So
Yep.
Agreed.
What's been paying the bills for a while, but at
yeah,
the same time, I can
What
see with him, he's always looking at, hey, how the drones,
what
perfect
goes? How does the
example.
future look?
That was in the guy that started Quick Trip wrote a book, and at the end of it, he said, as they became big, he asked the team and he said, we need a company mascot. And he wanted to put a statue in front of the building. They all voted on it and they picked a gorilla because they want to be the 900-pound gorilla in the room. And that was great. And he said, that's awesome. That's what I want. But keep in mind, the gorilla is an extinct animal. It's on the endangered,
Yeah,
it's
that's a
on
good
the
point.
endangered,
Yeah.
extinct,
Yeah.
but on the endangered
Yeah.
species. So you can't have that mentality because if you're not evolving and growing,
Yep.
you become Kodak.
Yep.
The digital camera comes on, or Blockbuster. And
Yep.
there's so many
Right.
of those where you have to,
You have to be able to adapt
right.
or pivot.
It's not a you get to the top and enjoy it and go to like if you're not continuing to climb, that mountain doesn't have a peak.
Yeah, very few people can pull that off. There's a couple steakhouses or a couple barbecue joints and stuff like that that say we've perfected
Yeah.
this
Yep.
and we got it.
Get with
But
us, or it's our program. We're the one writing it.
but it's pretty rare for a company to be able to say we've reinvented the wheel. We got nothing left to do. No,
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
keep moving.
You got to keep going.
Yeah.
Well, like that book, I've probably told you guys about the book, Who Moved My Cheese is a business book I read a long time ago. And it's a maze and these mice are in it. And there's this portion they go to, there's a bunch of cheese. And so this set of mice go to it every day. And one day it's gone, and they didn't ever innovate and go other places and look for
Go
more
look
cheese.
it.
They
They
got
knew what it
happy.
was.
They got happy where their honey hole was. Well, that's gonna dry up someday, And so it's just that model of understanding that, hey, we got to start doing things differently. We got to hold on to what's good and what we know is going to continue to be good. Then we got to branch.
You know what would be fun to get on the show too is some officers. Have some folks on the because
That's
We talk about
obviously-
that's the plan in the long run.
Yeah.
In the future is to get an officer on and talk to him about what's been successful with you. What have you liked about Titan? Where have you seemed to have grown?
Right.
What advice can you give on new officers
What
that
are
are
the
out there?
challenges and
Mhm.
what
Exactly.
how can we get better?
We were going over a retention piece a while back, and it was something I kind of brought up. I was like, we're asking we're doing these exit interviews on people that haven't been here very long. So let's go talk to the guy that's been here 3 years. Let's go talk to the guy that's been here 6 years or 10, 15, 9,
He
12.
hasn't decided.
Let's talk to those guys that are here that they're driving with our recipe. Let's talk to those guys and see and whether that's what it is, what it is that we do well, or what they really just they're okay with but want better. And I think that was a pretty successful strategy to get a good check of our own pulse.
Right.
And see, hey, because when we're constantly trying to get better and better, it's good to check in on our guys and say, hey, what are we doing well, so I can stop wasting time trying to go fight for you to get extra
Or
whatever.
what can I do? What can I do better to make your life more livable?
What am I wasting my time on here? Because I don't have much of it, and I want to make sure it's the most efficient
And
and the
it's
most
tough,
effective.
there is people I think have a perception, especially if you're standing at a post and it's just kind of just hang out and wait. That's an awesome gig. How can I do that? To stay attentive and to do that and stand in one place, that is a
exhausting.
challenge. It is. There's no doubt that job is not easy. You're on your feet. You got, it's a thankless gig, and
you and I were doing it when we weren't as tied to our phones as we are now.
right. We were doing that before there were cell phones.
We were
I
doing
mean,
it
was-
before. Yeah, we were doing it. I mean, when I started as a security officer,
Yeah, 2-9 in.
I could see you being the guy using Sudoku.
I don't even remember texting all that much.
My first cell phone that I got was my first year as a cop. So my first 3 years as a security officer, I didn't even have a cell phone.
Oh yeah, no way.
Was it a car phone?
No, I never had the bag.
I had a controller in football. Was a handcuff.
Yeah,
My dad had
Is it a
one of
Morris
those.
phone?
yeah. But we're so tied to our phones now to ask a young person to stand for 10, 12 hours. And
I mean, I've been on mine 4 times.
I'm kind of wondering the
I just,
same
well, I
thing.
just traded the
have to
camera and
I
pointed
have
at
to
him.
check in. I got to make sure the wheels still staying
Yeah,
sturdy.
yeah.
So we got guys downstairs running things too, but I wonder where I get it from.
Can't sleep.
I wonder where I get it
I'll
from.
tell you though, because I the same. I mean, I had that struggle too. It was constant. It's getting the process and the people in place to where you can trust it to go. I can unplug tonight and I can go up because we are a 24/7 operation.
365.
It's just if the emails, the phone call, they never stop coming.
No.
So it's kind of figuring. The
I do.
pace out.
I do. If I'm playing a show with a band, or if I'm having dinner with my old man, or if Jack and I are doing something, or Maddie or Zach's in town, I'll let these guys know. I say I'm actually putting my phone down for.
You will burn yourself. There is no doubt that pace is unsustainable. You cannot at 24 hours grind it.
I
He's
tend to
defying the laws
I
of physics.
I
brother.
tend to I tend to
That
disagree with you,
I was
sir.
gonna say that.
I answered my first email, I think, at 2:40 this morning.
It's a lot of
But
coffee.
that to you, but to him, though, he finds comfort in that.
No, he does.
Oh,
He
absolutely.
likes to live there a little bit, and that's why it's good that your boss is telling you this, because I say this as your subordinate, I get yelled at, but it's because I'm right.
Or he doesn't
I'll
listen.
say he'll say, "I'm not gonna." He goes, "I just want to not be able to check emails for 12 hours." Then don't,
Right.
but you
Right.
do, and that's okay because you care and you just always want to be the protector. But sometimes we want to show you we can do it, and I trust me, I've given you, and I can speak for other guys. We've all given you plenty of reasons why you feel the need to do that, but
Absolutely.
at the same time, uh, you're on with enemy sometimes.
Duke doesn't even report to me anymore. And I've sent him 5 emails this week that said, "You got this?"
He's the world's biggest sticky note.
You know
And-
what,
and
though?
guess what?
I hate that. I've done that a couple actually this week, and one in particular where I stuck my nose into something, and as soon as I did
You did
I
it
was like,
earlier today, and I could see you fighting with yourself about it.
Right.
Because he came by my office and he knows what light switch he's getting ready to flip. Yeah, and he comes in and I could see him talking, having the conversation with himself in his head.
Did I?
Stop telling Leon this. He's gonna go do something about it, but that's me.
There's that
Well,
moment
and
he'll actually
exactly.
start talking to like, I don't think I should have mentioned that.
I've gotten good at it with him. The relationship we developed over the years is I'll go to him. I go, I'm just venting. I don't want you to go beat somebody up for me. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, your dad's going to beat up your dad.
That's
No.
actually the exact scenario I had
I'm telling
just today.
I
It's
say,
just like
I'm just venting to you because
ask him a question. You don't need anybody killed.
he's already digging a hole. And like, all right.
What are you doing?
So-
we're just talking.
And sometimes that works,
He's
sometimes
rich
it doesn't.
in Yellowstone.
Yes. Yeah. We've already had this conversation.
Yeah.
Who's the old man then? I know who it is. I won't say it on here, but I know who it is. One of the oldest supervisors that we reacquired. That's the old man.
I
I haven't seen the show, to be honest with you.
I've
so
only
it's a good
watched
show.
good show.
one. I've only
I'm one
watched
season through.
I've watched 2 seasons.
Figured
And
out
if
it's
I
good.
was
Is it
g-
worth
if
worth
I
it?
It's worth it.
it's good.
Oh yeah.
If I was gonna identify, it would be that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just I like being down the bunkhouse with the guys.
Yeah.
There's also some little phrases that he has that just remind me of you.
Yeah.
One of his phrases, when he marries the boss's daughter,
Yeah.
she comes out one day and he looks at her and he goes, "I love you, but I don't have the ability to deal with you right now." And he just walks away.
Yeah.
And there are days that we'll be walking in here and you'll look at us and your exact words to us are,
The
"I
same
want you
thing.
to know I love you guys, but I don't have the ability to deal with you, so get out of my office."
Right.
And it's like, it's a valid point. I'm going to leave now.
You gotta have thick skin to be around here, and that's for all the right reasons. Because if I were to call him at 2:00 in the morning and say, "Hey, I need help with something," I would hear his truck starting. You know, he's on his way, and that goes for everybody.
Sure.
That's
Yep.
something special we got going, and so thank you for starting this 15 years
Yeah,
ago.
well, I learned very quickly that this isn't my company. I mean, it was starting it and building it up. I mean, from being at the beginning, it has certainly had a lot of hands into it. So, I mean, I appreciate everybody.
So here's a question I kind of want to ask you on that
Sure.
because there's been a ton of hands, a ton of people have been through here, as in bosses, supervisors, guys who help run everything. A question I've always wondered is when you were going to do anything, like he said, you were going to do anything to not work for somebody to do your own thing. When you started this, did you always know that you were going to have him with you, that you were going to take him and be like, you're going to be a part of this? This is going to be.
Oh yeah. I mean, my hesitation was when I didn't want him to come over and then everything fall apart, not from his doing, but like not be able to sustain it. And he'd go,
Right.
well, now what do I do? Like, but yeah, I mean, it was from the beginning. It was always like, hey, this is what I got. Let's figure it out. How do we got to do it? I mean,
Well, and that's kind of what I touched on earlier. It seems like, again, you're the guy we can do better, and he goes, "This is how we're gonna do better."
right. Well, he was there also from the beginning. I mean, when I started, I remember very specifically, there was a time, I think we had 2 or 3 clients. I mean, our very first client it was First Watch in Westport. I used to literally sit in the morning, I'd open the paper, figure out who got robbed, and I'd call them and go, "Do you need security?" And it was very
It's a pretty
ambulance chaser type of thing. But
better than cold calling.
right. And as we got, a couple clients, then I was working those clients. And then, so I'd work an overnight shift. And then in the morning, I'd do payroll and sales and whatever else was going on. But there was a very specific time when I remember I had thrown all my eggs into it. I remember calling him and was like, I'm literally about to start throwing rocks through windows and
That was said.
cars. I was like,
That was said.
I remember one time very specifically, and they ended up several years later becoming a client. It was some apartment complex, and I mean, I was going door to door, just walking in and going, "Hey, here's what we got going on." And I mean, there was a time when we were starting out, I know, and it was that day. I don't know if you remember that phone call, and I don't remember specifically. I just
Said
remember
I'm
being
hemorrhaging money.
yes. Well, I had written a check for rent for my apartment, and I knew that check wasn't going to clear.
I think we've all been there.
Right.
Don't miss just till
That
Tuesday,
was
please.
kind of it was like, man, and that was after, several and two, I always thought getting into the security business, one of the reasons why I wanted to do it is I didn't have any money to start a company. And I thought, well, what money do you need? You just if I got a
Boots on the
client,
ground. Yeah.
right, then my overhead is the payroll, right? And if I've got the client secured, they're gonna pay me. What I didn't realize is I've got to make payroll every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
My client has 30 days to pay me. They really pay me in 60. So I'm
Right.
floating 4 or 5 payrolls.
Yeah.
And that
The
really
business
picked
side
up
of it
because the
starts to kind
business
of.
side and that came in. So I started as a security officer when I was 18. I went into law enforcement when I was 22. I have done nothing else. I
Right.
was never in a corporate world where it
Right.
was like, here's how you read a
Yeah.
profit loss statement or
Here's QuickBooks and how to balance it.
right. It was all kind of figured out and trial by fire. But so it was definitely an interesting beginning. But
Yeah, I remember the phone call distinctly of I'm hemorrhaging money, and if I don't pull something off in the next 30 days, I'm going to police.
shortly after that, we got a big client.
Yeah.
It
No,
wasn't
I know
too long
exactly what it
after
was.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, some things started going, but it was, I mean, people have asked me that too. I've done a couple of those where somebody says, come talk to our entrepreneur class at Color or something. And they're always like, what would you advise? It's hard to say you would advise somebody to start a company, although I wouldn't change it. I got into it thinking, I don't want to work nights and weekends and holidays anymore, and I want to control my schedule and everything else. I mean, we work
We worked
10
nights.
times harder.
Yeah.
We should survive
Yeah.
24/7. Yeah.
Yeah.
It never, translates. So it's tough to say would I recommend it for somebody, but also in the same breath say I couldn't imagine doing anything different or,
That's probably the easiest way to get me to laugh is on a new hire Monday.
Yeah.
To hear a new hire say, "Well, I want to work 8 to 5 and weekends off." I go,
Yeah. It's been for 15 years.
It's just talking about that. It's one of the first things I say because I do all of their offer letters and everything. And one of the things I tell them is like, "Hey guys, I want you to understand something. This is a 24/7 business. We work weekends, we work days, evenings, overnights,
Holidays.
holidays. I understand it coming in and having one availability and all of a sudden something changing." I said, "But if you came in and you have availability, telling us you have availability, it's 24/7, 365. It doesn't matter to you. And now that you're here, you're sitting in here and you go, we can only do Monday through Friday from 8 to 4, and I need an hour lunch." Me and you're going to have a conversation in the hallway because you're not going to like my answer because I've been here almost a decade. My offer letter actually says Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, and I don't do that.
right.
There's no chance because this business
None
is
of
so
us
hard.
no.
Monday to
It's like
Friday.
the guy who owns the company doesn't work Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, and he's probably the only person in this company that has that right.
Right.
Sitting right here, and he don't even do it.
He still gets his PTO request approved.
Yeah,
And he's the one that writes. His
So
name's on my check.
the first time he was,
I approved my PTO.
the first time I was told,
I still approve it.
Well, he's like, hey,
But
I'm gonna use PTO this day. It's like, don't you own this?
Ryan, I'm
Right.
allowing you to take some time off.
Right.
Thank you, Ryan.
the first time I was told
Thank you
that
for everything you do.
Ryan,
This is
thank
a
you.
mirror
You're doing a great job.
conversation. Really good.
the
today.
first time I was told you used PTO, like everybody else. I looked at, I was like, wait, what? He uses PTO. And I go, yeah, he does. And I was like,
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing. I mean, obviously, he's my direct supervisor, and I love him like a father. But working with guys like you and being in a company with guys like you is what makes it so easy. I remember I worked construction as a kid, and I think I've told you this story. I was tearing up a floor. We were flipping houses when I first started getting into it, and we were tearing up a floorboard. And it was coming up like particle board. I mean, it was just I had a huge crowbar, and I had like 1,800 square foot of this house to do. The boss comes in like the Tommy Bahama flip flops, board shorts, and like a Hawaiian shirt because him and his wife and his kids are in the truck. And he sees me struggling. I got like all this tape on my hands. I'm all cut up, and I'm getting after it. It's 100 degrees in there because there's no AC because the house is gutted. And I look over and I hear this banging in the kitchen, and he's already tearing up a side. And he was there for an hour, but he took a good 400 square feet out. And he goes, "Hey, get what you can today and rest your." And it was just like it's a guy you want to work
Right.
for. That's a guy that when it gets bad, and I get people yelling at me or whatever,
The difference between leadership and management.
of course,
Yeah.
from the back or the front,
Right.
and I'll follow somebody into battle.
Right.
It's hard to be told to go in there.
Right.
And so that's it's just a big piece of it, knowing that you're grinding, everybody's grinding the same, and we're all doing it for the same thing, is to help people and build this company up, so we have something we look back and go, hey, I was
We did
part of
that.
that. I was a
Right.
part of it.
The very first salesperson that he ever hired took what I would say was a pretty cush job, and he was a former law enforcement officer too. Good, great dude. I was a big fan of his, and I remember when he walked out. He was still teaching class every week then, and he stopped by my class and wanted to talk to me before he bailed. He had his box and stuff like that, and I looked at him. And I said, "Dude, you feel like you might be leaving Microsoft?" And he goes, "I do." I do.
Yep.
And I said, okay, because I was just wondering because
Just checking.
yeah, and he was, but he was very, very humble about it. And said, "Yeah, I really do." He said, "But because of my family structure and the situation
Sure.
I'm in, that nice, easy peasy gig is just where I need to be right now and stuff." And I said, "Okay, man, I get it."
Yeah.
But it was just, it's been a neat experiment. It really has.
It is. It's been a
Yeah.
good, and still, I mean, we couldn't be in a better position than we are today. So I certainly
Yeah,
appreciate
like you said,
everybody's
you were
help.
going through calling people that got robbed the night before, and our regional account manager's phone doesn't stop ringing.
Right.
So it went from tracking people down to, we're saying, hey, we'd love to, we're gonna do what we can, but
Right.
it's just growth,
Right.
and so that's a complete 180.
Right.
15 years later, and phones don't stop ringing.
Right.
Haven't yet.
That's right.
No, I wish. I'm just kidding.
Well, and
Not
especially
once.
to the officers and everybody else out there. I mean, it's obviously there's a lot that goes into it, but those folks are the ones that are out there risking their butt while we sit.
I mean, we
here
say it
and mourn.
we say it every podcast. Without you guys out there, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. We wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to have this podcast. We wouldn't be able to sit here in this nice studio room,
Right.
and talk to you guys and do this.
Climate controlled.
We wouldn't little heater and all. We wouldn't be able to go to special events out of town. We wouldn't be able to do all these fun things that some of the other, that we get to do. So without you guys, we got nothing. So we appreciate everything that you
It's like
do.
when a band gets really big and they stop paying homage to their fans. You see what happens to that. They're the ones that are buying tickets and tickets to
It's the gorilla.
concerts.
That gorilla, it's a great. Everybody, we want to be the 900-pound gorilla, but we got to watch out. We don't want to end up on
don't
the
go
beach. Yeah.
Stay hungry.
Yep.
Yeah, stay hungry. What else, guys?
Any more?
That's pretty much it. I don't want to keep it not too short and sweet, but cover the basics. We covered the beginnings and why we're here, what we're doing, and a little appreciation to everybody. So
The easiest way would be to say the entire growth has been evolution. We continue
Oh,
to
yeah.
get better.
evolve.
Continue to
Yep.
get better at
And
every
don't sleep.
Yeah, and don't sleep. Don't sleep.
That's
Actually,
right.
I do have one. I have a question for you, Leon.
Okay.
I remember when I got hired on, we were doing our training in the cave. What do you think progression-wise after
There's a
everything?
great cave story. I'll tell you when we're done.
Fantastic.
That's why he's sneering at
No
me.
podcast on podcast or after?
After.
Okay.
Better. See you guys. Have a good night.
But I remember the training in the cave versus the training here. When you look at stuff like that and you go back to the way it was done back then, that progression, how do you feel about that? Like, what is that?
Um,
Dude, we were like, there's uniform. There was a time when we get a new client and we blew a badge on it and go, here you go, get good. I mean, we've come a long way.
I feel like I mean this is a music reference, and so it's gonna be lost on you guys. But there is an old school band that's been around forever since I was a little kid, called Rancid, and one of my favorite bands in the world. And they kind
Me
of
too.
yeah, right. And
I've
they
actually heard of this band, to be honest.
they sprung out of
That's all I know.
an old Bay Area band called Operation Ivy, and they never really. I mean, they never really changed. They stayed who they were, and they stayed true to who they were, and they are now the biggest band of that genre by far. And I feel like whether it was in that conference room or him saying, "Hey, can you go do this gig?" or whatever, we stayed true to that edict that we're going to be better than the other guys, and it paid off. Yeah, we have a nice training room now. We
Mhm.
have nice training equipment. We have better uniforms, like as he was just referencing. We have better vehicles that we've seen. Everything
It's gotten better.
You
benefits,
Yeah.
everything pay, everything has evolved
Yep.
and in a positive direction. And if there's anything, everybody knows how flawed I am. And I'm the first to admit.
perfect.
If there's I'm the first to admit it. But if there's any life journey that I've signed on for is to leave things better than when I started.
Yep.
I'm so hard on you guys about that. It's you need to be leaving things better for people.
Well, we had this conversation a week ago with the end of the year coming up, and he goes, "Had a great year. Got to get better next year."
Yep.
And it's like, don't, like you say, stay hungry,
You
stay
can't
thin.
stop.
And I mean, to me, I think we had a phenomenal year.
Phenomenal.
Fantastic year. A
Best
lot
year
of
ever.
obstacles. Yeah, a lot of obstacles we came over, and the numbers side, which is not even my wheelhouse. When we had our meetings, I'm like, okay, I don't know maths very well, but
My
looks
numbers
like good math.
No math numbers.
That's
my
good
math numbers aren't
maths.
that great, but that looks
That's
pretty good.
that's good maths, and people are,
I learned
math
through
is
that
hard.
project too is what get measured gets cut. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's giving the focus. And I think that came after a lot of years of micromanagement of doing, well, let's do this and let's just go in 20 different directions.
Right.
It really
Waste
was
our
more of
time
a
when we
piece
need,
of
yeah.
going, hey, no, this is the focus and how we do it. And I think it paid off. I
Yeah.
mean, hopefully it continues to do
Well, and
so.
that's what we have. There's the 2 or 3 key things that he wants me to do, or any of the guys he's over. That hey, at the end of the day, when figuratively speaking, hopefully not realistically, but when the bullets are flying and it's chaos, and phone calls and people are you know just ambushing you with issues. These are the 3 core things that you work on, because these are the 3 things that get you through
It's
the
like that
next.
analogy of the house is on fire and you're out mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
Like you can't
Exactly.
just
That's
doing stuff
yeah.
doesn't
Doesn't work.
it
These are the 3 things we adhere to, and that's what's going to get us better next year,
right.
and the next year, and the next year, and that's what sets us apart from, to me, any other company.
Right.
Just don't know one. And like I said, if you're not too focused on it, because I'm worried about us, name one.
Right.
It does what we do. I
Well,
can't.
that's what when Kyle came here, he thought, I'm going to take Titan. He came from the national company and said,
Yeah.
I'm going to take this and try and bring it up to
Yep.
the national. He said, when I got here, I really quickly realized like they're onto something. We're in our own lane.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
else is. It's
It's like
like
trying
we're
to
not
serve
catching
Mexican
somebody.
food at an Italian restaurant. They're not coming there for the Mexican food. They're coming there for the lasagna.
And when you start trying to focus on competitors and doing what everybody else does, I think it was Michael. Somebody had a saying that was like, winners focus on winning, losers focus on winners. And I think there's a lot
Yeah.
said to that, where it's like if you're chasing what your competitor's doing, you're already behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what's been kind of cool about us is we kind of carve our own path, and it's good to see it working, and knock on wood, hopefully stays that
The
way.
most successful we've ever been is when we're true to ourselves. in the
Yes.
field.
Yeah.
100%.
Don't mess with the training. Don't mess with the systems we have in place.
And stay on
Just
your feet.
luck. I mean, there was a time too where we were like, do we put out a lower version that competes with the nationals on the commodity business that just doesn't have as much training? And
Not
so
us.
glad we didn't do that.
That's not us.
Right. It's
Yeah.
just not us.
It goes against everything that we do.
There's this great. You guys do know who the band AC/DC is. And
Who?
thank you. And Brian Johnson, their lead singer, they were asking him because when the '80s hit, with the mid '80s and the hair metal, they were still in black T-shirts and jeans and stuff, and they never just. And he was in this interview, and he said, they stayed on us and stayed on us about. He goes about you. You got to lift your hair up, and you got to put something
Wear eyeliner.
sparkly on. He was so gracious, and he was just. I'm so glad we stuck to our guns. And
Authenticity is
and for us, when I see a national officer or an officer who works for a guard who works for a national company, there's a police officer in a fight on the ground, and she's sitting there recording it, and the
Videotaping, yeah.
police officer yells, "Stop recording! Help me!" And she walks the other direction.
Yeah.
I remember sending that to him and said, "I will never be.
That's
I
not
won't
a
be a part of
failure
that."
though of that officer. That is
It's a failure of that
of
model.
training
Yeah.
and giving them, because I mean, think
That
about
person
it.
should never had a uniform on.
Exactly.
How many times is a security officer tasked with that person needs to leave, go tell them they need to leave the property? It's
Tell them
a
to be
very
quiet.
common thing.
It's a normal thing.
There's no training. I mean, you go to that's what's scary about the industry is the norm is you go watch a 3-hour video and they give you a shirt and go, here's your address, go be a security
Yeah.
officer. And that 3 hours is Here's how you turn in your timesheet.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
Don't say this
Here's how you
because
fill out
HR will be
the
So
upset.
what do you expect? But anyway, I agree.
Well,
And you're right. That's me railing against the model, not so much the
Right.
officer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, they
I
should never
guess
been in that
Because
position.
you
to
take
begin with.
that same officer in our system, I think you could expect a different outcome.
good point.
Well, there's a reason why once a week on Tuesdays, while I'm trying to take client phone calls and emails, I hear DT going on in the room next to me because it's loud, it's violent, and the guys are getting taught that hey, sometimes just being nice to someone's not going to work, and so you have
Here's
to know
the
how
physical
you
part.
still know how to defend yourself
Yeah.
and know how to handle yourself or maintain control of somebody that's not wanting to have a good day. So that's exactly why again we weren't trimming any of the training, when we're like, hey, what can we do a little different? Don't mess with that.
And
That
that
recipe
training
is good.
simulator, that's for me, that's
There's
everything
police departments
because
that don't
it's
have that.
right.
We've had police
Huge.
departments here to use it.
That's right.
It's huge. And just as an instructor, I've seen where this guy's really good, but he needs to work on this just from having him run through one or two scenarios.
Right.
And so it's helping us as instructors, that officer not make that mistake or be in a position where they're going to be out of their element, and so I would definitely agree there. So it's just like client startups. We have a playbook we stick to. Was that the water boy?
Yeah.
Where he's got that green playbook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have that playbook. A lot of people want it, but it's ours. It's ours.
I do not deviate from a startup. We got that one right, and we are not going to get away from that model. That works well for it. We've had some very over the last couple of years success on starting up.
Or about 5 or so.
Yeah. Are you indicating on how long you've been
Sorry,
here?
what?
That's what I heard.
I think it's 4.
Merry
but-
Christmas.
So
Happy
yeah,
holidays.
so
Merry-
we're
yes.
recording this.
Merry
We're
Christmas.
recording this just before Christmas, guys. So you guys will probably see this either the Monday or the Friday after. So Merry Christmas if you haven't seen it.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
You filthy animals.
You beat me to it. We appreciate everything you guys do. I think we're going to cut it here. We appreciate everything, guys. Everything you do in the field allows us the ability to do little things like this, where we can have beverages with the bosses. We can have them in and berate them with questions, or have them make fun of each other, and for you guys to make fun of us a little bit too. So we can't say it enough. We thank every one of you for doing it. We
Very much.
appreciate everything. We wish you guys to have a good rest of your day, and we will see you guys next time.
Be careful
Thanks
out
for
there,
joining
guys.
Happy
us.
holidays.
Happy holidays.